Tiger fans, it's Morgan back again, this time to talk about some of the rumors around an alliance between the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC. And the question for today is that good for Clemson or not? We'll get into it. I'll let you know my thoughts. Before we do, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us over on Facebook so you can stay up to date on all of our exclusive Clemson content we put out every single week. College football is getting even closer, and there's already discussions about what's going to happen in the future, specifically around an alliance between the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12. I think it'd be a great idea. You know, if you watch my live show or our live streams, you'll know that I originally came out and said, Clemson has got to join the SEC. They've got to give up. They got to get out of this conference. That was my gut reaction. I still have some of those feelings. I do. But I will say that an alliance makes me feel a lot better, especially between the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC. Talk about a national conference or alliance, if you will, if these conferences get together and coordinate. So we'll get into it and I'll tell you what my thoughts are, and you can put your thoughts in the comments. But this is all centered around Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC and adding more powerhouse teams to an already loaded conference. We know they like to remind us how great they are. We know they have some great teams. They don't like for us to remind them that they have some bad teams as well. But for the most part, they do have some really good, really loyal fan bases, amazing football teams, and committed financially football teams as well, and historically great football teams. Now they're adding two more, so it's going to make it even more difficult to compete with them on a conference-to-conference, apples-to-apples basis. It's not really apples-to-apples, to be honest, but the Pac-12 commissioner recently came out. George Kliavkoff said nothing really to report right now, but they are in discussions, which I think if you're a college football fan, you have to be excited for this. Why would they want to do this, though, other than just having a bigger conference or adding more teams? I think it's not just about adding more teams. I think a lot of people come out and they want to play fantasy football owner. They want to add all these teams into a conference and have a super conference. But the thing is, you got to have better teams, not just better teams, but committed teams and financially committed teams to the sport of football. Not just teams that are just going to add to the conference so they'll be maybe better than Vanderbilt, maybe better than Duke. And, there is a catch-22 with those two teams because Vanderbilt's really good at baseball. They're not really good at football, but they're really good at baseball. Duke, on the other hand, is really good at basketball. Not good at football, but, so it's not always black and white in this situation. But when it comes to football in a conference, maybe there needs to be football-only conferences and basketball-only conferences. I don't know what the real solution is. Alliance seems interesting, though. I think it's key that they have to have teams that are better teams and they can compete so that they can compete with the SEC. Better teams, not just more teams, means better schedules. Better schedules means more power and more money as well. Think about the teams that Clemson could play if this alliance is in place. You have Clemson versus USC, Southern California, not the fake USC, the U of SC. They don't even know what they are. They think they're California, or at least their president thinks they're California. But I'm talking about Southern California, the Trojans. That would be an amazing game. Clemson traveling there or them traveling to Clemson. I would definitely buy that ticket. Clemson versus Oregon, another one. Definitely would buy that ticket. Who knows what uniform they'll show up with. Doesn't matter. It'd be a game I'd want to go to. Penn State, man, I would probably travel to that game just to see the whiteout and experience that firsthand because I never have. And then the newest of rivalries, which has brewed, really not new, I guess, because it has been going on for some time. But a lot of fans, it's forefront right now, which is Clemson versus Ohio State. That game would be great if you could see that regularly as well, because those powerhouses, especially those four teams just in general, those powerhouses, but there's many other teams. You got Iowa, you got Wisconsin. I would like to see those, even maybe a Northwestern, throw those in there. I'd love to see those games. Minnesota, those would be some great games that I think Clemson would benefit from playing those. Now, that would help their schedule become better because, to be honest with you, again, if you've watched the live streams, I have tickets this year. I'm not really super excited about the lineup. I mean, Wake Forest, Boston College, Connecticut, Florida State, those teams. Florida State used to be awesome. Boston College is a decent team, but it's not really super exciting. South Carolina State, Georgia Tech. I would rather see the other teams that I mentioned from the other conferences. Now, those are the top conferences, or those are the top teams in those conferences, so they're not always going to play those teams. There will be some situations where they may play the lesser teams. I think we can get into a whole nother discussion about this, but I think that's why it's important to have relegation. But we can get into that in another video. But the Big 10 is another, or Big 12 is another situation too. They were left out of this conversation. They talked to the Pac-12 individually, but they weren't included in this alliance talk. So that kind of points to me that the Big 12 is, kind of a foregone conclusion there. They are having to scrounge around, try to figure out what they can do to make a conference again. Otherwise, they're going to disband. If they disband, what happens to West Virginia? What happens to Iowa State? I think those teams would be very valuable in, say, the Big 10 or the ACC. What about American teams? I see in Twitter all the time about American teams. The ACC needs to pick up Cincinnati or Central Florida or Memphis. I don't agree with that. I think that those teams in that conference are, may benefit from coming in a relegation situation. But right now, I think it's something you have to hit hard with hard. So you've got SEC taking two amazing teams, two historically amazing teams. Now, you can argue about Texas not being amazing, but when it comes to money, those two teams are powerhouses, okay? So they've just added those two teams. I don't think money-wise you can add Central Florida or South Florida. Now, some people are saying, I heard somebody on the radio say, well, you should take over the state of Florida. Well, I mean, you don't need South Florida or Central Florida to take over the state of Florida. You already have Miami and Florida State. I don't really think adding two more Florida teams would help you take over the state other than geographically you have taken over the state. I think monetarily you have taken over the state with the two largest, most profitable teams already in your conference, considering, talking about the ACC. So I don't think you just want to take over a state in that sense. To me, I think the alliance makes more sense, and let's take over this thing nationally, because then that would really squash anything that the SEC could do if you had a coast-to-coast alliance and they were only stuck in the southeast, southwest, I guess you could say, area. But what about networks too? We're talking about better teams. We're talking about better schedules. Well, that leads to better games. That leads to night games. That leads to more competition in the television world and better fan bases as well to attend those games. So then you have ESPN and the SEC. We already know they're together. Who is going to combat that? Who's going to join the alliance? Is it going to be ESPN too? I don't think so. I don't think ESPN is going to be a part of that alliance either. What if Fox comes in and is the sole media provider for the alliance, the College Football Alliance and Fox? Then you have like Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt calling a Clemson game. I don't know if I'd like that or not. I think I would, at least for a few times. Maybe not every single game, but I think I would. It would be interesting to see the fight between Fox and ESPN, because we know that Fox wants to take it to them. So what can they do in that situation? I think it would be amazing. Now, NBC's out there with Notre Dame. We haven't even thrown them into the mix. There's so many questions. It's crazy. I think it's great discussion, though. I wonder how it's all going to work out. Somebody's got to make the first move. Oh, and don't even forget about the NCAA. What are they going to do? It seems like they're no longer even getting involved in off-the-field issues. The NIL, do whatever you want to do, make up your own rules. NCAA is actually saying let the governments decide, which I think is scary to me. If you know anything about the government, I've worked in the government. If you see what the government is doing with other things in the world, I don't know if I really trust the government to be able to properly handle college football or being fair in sports at all. I think what will happen there is you'll have one state having some set of rules and another state having another set of rules. Those two teams will play. They won't be able to play, or they'll violate some sort of rule. They'll get thrown into jail or go into Supreme Court. You don't want this to be some sort of legal matter that's going to always be taken up in the courts through the state. To me, that just yuck is all I got to say about that. But it does seem like they don't really care to handle anything but on the field enforcement. I would even say let's go ahead and take on the field enforcement away from them and let the conferences rework the rules specifically around targeting. We know everybody hates targeting and having to lose a player for an entire half of a game. But again, a lot of questions. We discussed it. We kind of breezed through it. Again, this could be like a 3-hour conversation. I wanted to jump in, give you my quick off the cuff thoughts. I want you to get in the comments, let me know what you think, and let me know what you're excited for this college football season. But again, don't forget to like this video to help with our algorithm. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook so you can stay up to date with us on all the videos we put out.